Welcome to episode 15 of Matthew-linity. Okay, so I'm just going through quickly chapter 2. I'm not spending a detailed examination like on chapter 1. And so this is part 4 of Matthew chapter 2. This is the most difficult part of chapter 2 to create a podcast episode for, because it deals with the genocide that happens at Herod's command. And so, all right, so I'll just read aloud the 3 verses. So we have verses 16, 17, and 18. Then Herod, seeing that he had been mocked by the Magi, became exceedingly angry, and he sent to have killed all the boys in Bethlehem and its surrounding regions, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, A voice in Ramah was heard, weeping, and much grieving, Rachel weeping over her children, and not wanting to be comforted, because they are no more. So this is a very difficult passage. Why are we being told this? We're hearing about the genocide that's happening, and these are just babies. So why do we need to be told this horrendous story? Like, what? It seems like it's really important for the book of Matthew. Here it is at the beginning of the story. Not much has really happened yet. The story's only just started getting going, and we're hearing about Herod ordering the deaths of baby boys. So the story is supposed to remind us of the story of the Exodus. So when Moses was a baby and the king or the Pharaoh was ordering the deaths of the baby boys. And so we're being reminded that this is the same kind of story. It's replaying again, where the person who is supposed to be in charge, supposed to be looking after everybody, and helping society to become a better society, they're not. They're acting out of fear and paranoia. So Herod is being shown to be very afraid, acting out of paranoia, and exceedingly angry. So now notice how it says, seeing that he had been mocked, or tricked, or deceived. But he hasn't been mocked. Why does it say, seeing that he has been mocked? The Magi haven't mocked him. They were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. Don't go back that way. That's not good. So they avoid the danger, and they don't go back through Jerusalem. They go back another way. Yeah, so they don't come back to Herod. So Herod, it's just a few miles away, Bethlehem and Jerusalem, just a few miles. So Herod is just expecting them to come straight back once, they've gone to the little town of Bethlehem and figured out which is the right house to come straight back. It's not going to take too long, but they don't come back. And Herod feels tricked. In his own eyes, he feels tricked. Not that the Magi are trying to trick him. They're not trying to deceive him. They're not trying to mock him. So this is an example of Herod's paranoia. He feels like he has been mocked. According to the way that Herod is seeing the world, he feels that he has been mocked. How dare they not do what he told them to do? How dare they not? They don't have to do what Herod tells them to do. They're not one of Herod's subjects. And so Herod is portrayed as a power-hungry, afraid, paranoid leader who he's not leading his people. He's not shepherding them in a way that's protecting them. The most vulnerable of all, babies, are being killed because of Herod's fear. So what we have here is a contrast, a counter-example of Herod, who is not shepherding his people. He's not looking after the people. What's needed is a leader who will shepherd the people. He will look after them. He will protect them. He will do what is good for them. But that's not the picture of Herod that we're given. So the portrait of Herod that's being given is of the opposite. It's a counter-example of what's needed. And so this is reminds me that I probably should point out a little inaccuracy that I had in part 1 for Matthew chapter 2, where it says, "And all Jerusalem with him." So it said Herod was disturbed and all Jerusalem with him. Now at the time, I hadn't noticed how Matthew distinguishes between the city and people just in general, people who are living in the city or residing or just happen to be in the city. So when it says all of Jerusalem, I think that I suggested that it was all the people who happen to be in the city. But that's not the way that Matthew uses the words for Jerusalem and people. So when Matthew's talking about people in general, it will be a reference to the people, the crowds, and there's a difference with the city. So Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem, seems like it's a reference to the powers that be in Jerusalem. So Herod and the chief priests and the top scribes, the people who have the power, who represent the power of the city. It's not necessarily a reference to people commonly, or all the other general people who happen to be in the city. The city itself is a distinct thing. According to Matthean logic, it's treated differently to people in general. Yeah, so here we have this horrible massacre, and we might wonder, why do we need to be told this? It's such a depressing story to be told. All the families that didn't get out because it just hit them suddenly. I mean, it just suddenly happened. We heard that Mary and the baby are out. Like Joseph got out. He got the child and his mother out of Bethlehem in the middle of the night and got to safety because it was suddenly happening. This is just a sudden thing that no one got out in time except for Jesus, Mary and Joseph. They got out in time. But what about all the other families that couldn't do anything? They didn't have enough chance to get out. Now, this does create a bit of a problem because it seems like it's suggesting that, they didn't receive any warning, that there was no warning. And one way to look at it is that, perhaps all the parents woke up in the middle of the night with a foreboding, dreading sense that something was wrong, but they didn't know how to interpret that sense. So perhaps all the families had bad dreams. Like perhaps all the parents had dreams warning them, but only Joseph put it into action. Is that what it's suggesting? I think that's one way to read it. If we take the same logic that the Magi see something in the sky, they see a sign in the sky that says, a child's been born. They interpret it as, there's a child that's been born in Judea, and that's not a sign that is hidden, as in, like, other people can see it. Like, presumably, everybody could have seen that star in the sky. It was there. It was there for anyone to see. So if we take the same logic, then we could extrapolate that, perhaps all the parents are receiving warnings. Quick, get out, there's danger. Quick, it's happening now. Like, it's dangerous. Joseph's warning wasn't very much in advance. I mean, it was just a few hours or so. Like, it's just, he gets up in the middle of the night, shifts his family, and they move just suddenly, very suddenly. This sometimes does happen. Sometimes it's only a few days warning. In this case, it just seems to be very sudden, just a few hours warning, which isn't enough time for other people to understand what to do and how to act. And this is a horrible situation, and these sort of situations do happen around the world, and they are shocking, they are horrible. And here we have a verse, it's slowing down and talking about the grieving that happens. And so we have a reference to a scripture that talks about Rachel grieving for her children. It's Jeremiah. It's from Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is using that image to talk about something that seems like it's a reference to the northern exile, the northern tribes, the northern kingdom being exiled, and whatever happens when the Syrians take over in the north. So it's interesting that's linked, Matthew's chosen to link with something that seems like it's a reference to the northern exile. Anyway, there are some reasons we could really look into why this verse is appropriate to use. And one of the reasons is because, it's such a clear reference to grieving the loss of children. Like here we have the loss of children, and so the mothers who are grieving, what else is there to do? Such a mother doesn't want to ignore what's happened. Like, it can't be ignored. Like, this is a loss that is grief. So it says Rachel refuses to be comforted, refuses to be cheered up, and oh well, it's okay. No, it's not okay. This is a loss that is being experienced. It's being grieved. So all the mothers, all the parents who have lost their children in this story is taking a moment to think of that loss and to think of the mourning, the grieving that is happening in such circumstances. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening.